and welcome to a special episode of Effed Up Stories.
Very special.
Very special. A lot of you don't know this, but Ryan and I, we've been friends for, over a decade, but apart on opposite sides of Canada. So we were friends here, he moved away, and we kept in touch and kept this Effed Up Stories thing going. But we haven't been in the same room together in how long?
Over 4 years.
Over 4 years, and so it's not very often that we get to do this. So we don't even really have a game plan. We're going to sit back and we're going to do a special episode of Effed Up Stories as friends. Ryan's on vacation, he's visiting home, and we're going to, there's a couple things we didn't get to go over that has happened in the past little while. So one thing with Effed Up Stories this year, everybody's noticed it, everybody said, we haven't had a lot of episodes, and that there's a very good reason for that. I'm not ready to let the cat out of the bag yet, but in the meantime, what we're going to do is give you a couple things to tie you over in about a month. I'm hoping to, I can't wait to show you guys the reason why that is. So tonight, Will and Ryan in the flesh.
On camera for the first time.
On camera for the first time. And the sound quality is going to suck. I just moved. I don't have enough sound materials to do this room right.
Enough acoustic paneling.
I can't, and I don't have shotgun microphones. We picked up a couple of couple Workman lights, actually, just to give you some lighting for this video. I thought it was going to be like $40, $230 later. A little bit ticked off, but they're kind of good. That's actually only one light. We weren't going to do the 3-point thing, but whatever. And we're going to be doing a little bit of drinking on the episode. But yeah, so this is more or less some things we didn't get to touch on. We didn't do these episodes for a while now. Everybody's been asking, have we died? So let's go over some of the things that happened in the past little while that we didn't ever mention. We finally crossed the 10,000 subscriber mark.
10,000 subscribers.
10,000 subscribers. Never thought in a million.
How awesome is that?
We never thought in a million years that this would happen. Let's, for everybody who don't know, because there's a lot of you, how did Effed Up Stories come to be? Well, I'll let you start it, and then I'll chime in when you're wrong.
There you go. It simply started out of our own conversations, just telephone calls, and we're talking, 2, 3, sometimes 4-hour telephone marathons about all the stuff that we talk about on the show. Whenever we record a show. I was going to say every week, but that would be a lie.
We want it to.
We want to, but schedules being what they are. So, in essence, that's really how Effed Up Stories started. And it was you who approached me, and you said, people would be interested in these conversations. We should record them and put it on YouTube. And I said, you're fucking ridiculous.
And I was lying. I didn't truly believe it, but in a nutshell, what it was that Ryan had moved away. This was shortly, some years after. It wasn't that short, a couple years after.
Yeah.
But, so when we would catch up, I would phone Ryan would phone me, and we'd always end up on this topic of the paranormal or a conspiracy or something like that. So, that was just our conversation, right? It always went there. And I had happened to be doing a web development program, and I had to make a website for school, and I was like, well, I really enjoy the paranormal, I'll make a website on the paranormal. Never really thinking it was going to go anywhere. It was a school project, right? It was an interest of mine that it gave me an excuse to kind of poke and prod there. But then I thought, I had some stories, and I thought, well, this is as far as my family stories I can get. And I was hoping that I'd get, people submitting stories, and nobody knew who the fuck Effed Up Stories was, right? Like, how do you do that? So I really didn't think anything would happen. And when I approached Ryan, we were just talking on the phone one night, and I was like, this conversation we're having, this should be the show. It was like Seinfeld. It'd be about nothing. It should just be this thing that we do here. And, I knew right away Ryan didn't take it seriously, because when I asked him for his picture, if I could pop the one on his iPhone, just him in a bandana, this terrible quality picture. And I was like, yeah, I can't use that. So I've been using Ryan's pictures like 10 years ago, stuff I took when he visited home. More.
Like 11, 12
and
years
I've been recycling the same two pictures ever since. So this is your most updated look at Ryan right here. It doesn't look all that different. The bandana is new. But other than that, he doesn't seem to age. But he has this terrible painting where all his bad deeds just go into that. But anyway, so we never thought that anything would happen with this, and we did a couple episodes. We threw them on YouTube. Forgot about it. We left for what, 6 months?
Something like
that. And then I just happened to check back one day. I was like, holy shit, man! Fucking Skinwalker Ranch. It was like thousands and thousands of views. We're like, what happened? And then we responded to some comments, and then it just kind of blew up, and it has been snowballing ever since. Never did any advertising.
No.
Never really reached out to anyone. In fact, our first interviews, our first people we had on our show, we didn't even go after them. Guys, Mackie came to us, and he was like,
I think, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, I'm a fan of your show. I know I can get you guys Jason Haxton. We were like, okay. And then he came to us. I can get you Chris O'Brien. And again, we were okay. And then we asked a couple people. You asked Nick Redfern, and I think David Weatherly. I asked Howard Storm, and honestly, it's been easy. Like we just don't do it because we're lazy. But
yeah, it's difficult to coordinate our schedules because, of course, it's a 3.5 hour time difference. Plus, if we add a third person into the conversation, now we have another. Most likely it's a completely different time zone to factor in.
And it's worked well for us, like with people who are used to doing shows like Jason Haxton, like Chris O'Brien. They're always on time. It's very smooth, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to interviewing people, like just people who send in stories, that's a whole different story. There's been, I don't even know if it was a 50-50. A lot of times we'd sit,
It's probably more like a 70-30 of people not
showing up, right? And so that's one of the reasons we don't do that very much anymore. But we do it sometimes. Like if a story really grabs us, we'll do it. But in any case, so that's how Effed Up Stories came to be. I mean, we started off not very serious at all. And then I think people just expected more. They enjoyed it, so it gave us, I guess, a reason or motivation to do it. But we totally didn't set out for
to create a semi-successul podcast.
I mean, hell, we've been approached by 3 TV networks.
3 TV networks.
In the past 2 years, we've been. The first one was.
Should we say names?
I don't know.
We should probably just leave.
How about this? We almost this close to have been on mainstream, real like sci-fi.
Yep.
The Animal Planet. We were almost there, right?
Same kind of format as stuff like Finding Bigfoot and Mountain Monsters and that kind of stuff. So two near misses.
2 near misses.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how this came to be. Now let's talk about some of the more interesting things that have happened with our show.
Interesting things.
One of the things that I find interesting personally, it always makes me laugh.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to point this out. It always cracks me up. But like I said, when we first started this, we didn't expect Effed Up Stories to, nobody was going to give a shit, right? So Ryan and I, of course, have, we've dabbled into some things. Him way more than me. I mean, he's gone miles into the fucking darkness that, like, I would be more at the edge of saying, Ryan, what do you see down there? Is it bad? Yeah. Can you explain it to me? So I vicariously experienced some of the stuff through Ryan, and I'm the more cautious of us, you could probably tell. But anyway, so Ryan has a storied history with the occult, Satanism and stuff. And, he dragged me into it a little bit, and of course I got out, that's not my thing. I'm back with God again. I'm on good terms with God, I hope. But anyway, so Ryan had this thing where he went really deep and got into some things, and we were going to do this episode on demonic possession. It's our second most popular show, and we had this conversation before the show, and I said, Ryan, what if we talk a little bit about your past and this stuff? And he was like, no, Will.
The answer was absolutely no.
Absolutely not. He didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Ryan, man, but no one's going to see this, right? So we get into the episode, we're halfway through, and I'm like, so Ryan, what about that?
Right on the spot.
Right on the spot. What about that experience that you had when you did destruction rituals and all this stuff? And Ryan, he's on the spot, right? So he's like, fuck it, yeah. So I did this, and so after the show, I say, don't worry, Ryan, man, no one's gonna see this. This is gonna,
And for almost 6 months, nobody did.
And then, bang! It's like the second most popular episode we have. So
thousands and thousands of views.
It's like well over 100,000 views now. So, and so much so, he has a friend. I'm not going to mention names, but that just really fucking cracked me up too. Like, it delights me in part because he dragged me into this, and I had a terrible experience. So it was almost like karma, right? Karma's come back to get him a little bit. And anyway, so his friend, and was that when they were getting married?
They were leaving on their honeymoon, so this is in the new place I'm living now, across the other side of Canada. And they just get married, and they hop in his truck, and they're driving out to beautiful Banff, to Lake Louise, to spend a couple of nights together, newlyweds. So he does what he always does. He loads his phone up with a bunch of podcasts and
like every good person should.
That's right, and sticks them in his truck, and they start their drive. And lo and behold, one of the podcasts he had loaded up was a demonic possession one that he had never listened to before. And needless to say, by the time the ride was over,
he's the devil we know.
And it was a big experience for them and that's why I didn't want to talk about it in the first place, because it's one of those things now it's on the internet. It's I'm living with that forever.
He sacrificed his cat.
I've never done that.
Yet.
Yeah, I love my
someone else's cat. Fucking blowing him up. But so how was it? They were in the car. It comes on, and there's this awkward song.
Well, they're just sitting there staring. From what he told me, they're just sitting there staring at one another, like, "Oh my God, he's in to the occult, like for real," and blah blah blah. And it was his wife more freaked out than anything.
Yeah.
Because he was my buddy. He knows what I'm like, but she's like, I don't know if I want this guy around my kids.
And she was freaked out, right?
Yeah, legitimately very bothered by it.
And I believe your friend came to you and
kind of real solemn, I listened to your podcast. I'm like, yeah, I got lots of them. Which one was it? The demonic possession. Oh,
that one.
That's an old one. That's an old one.
So
yeah, we learned some stuff. Yeah, I bet you did.
And so it brings me great joy.
Yeah.
Every time I hear these stories, and even today, there's people that'll find it like, Ryan, I want to save you. If you just,
and that just lights you up too.
It do.
I'm fine. I don't need to be saved.
Well, anyway, maybe. But anyway, so that's one of my good memories, and of course, the first handful of episodes that we did actually happened to us.
Yeah, it was just our personal experiences. Right. Probably the big reason why we're interested in this stuff, right? We had our own personal experiences with this stuff, with the paranormal and UFOs and some spiritual encounters, I guess you could call.
Oh yeah. In fact, something that's kind of interesting. There's certain things I know that I can't say, but you and I have been affected for real from doing this show. We've actually had things happen to us as a result of the show. So I've been asked, we get a lot of emails. I should take this opportunity actually to apologize to anybody who's emailed me in the last 6 months that I haven't gotten back to. It really isn't a personal thing. I've just been so busy. I've got them flagged. It's just I don't know if I can ever keep up with them.
It piles up, and if you're not, it's one of those things where you'd almost want to be able to hire somebody to just go through.
We do. We've actually looked at taking people in. We've discussed this, taking people in to do different jobs. Of course, the issue being that, like, despite the workload and what it takes, and despite how many people view it, the money doesn't weigh this. You know,
well, it doesn't translate into the. You know, if you were doing an hourly job, you would be paid a hell of a lot more money than, you know, what is put in on an average YouTube video.
Oh,
even though we don't even do video. Thank God. That's a whole. You know,
this was a pain in the fucking ass. It's not even any good. Right? This is just slapped together fucking like workman lights. You know, a condenser microphone is going to sound like ass over there. You're just going to hear the room. You know, the video's on my DSLR picture camera.
Which and it's still all literally hundreds of dollars of equipment and, you know, some time ago. But, you know, just to illustrate the, I guess, it turns into, everything snowballs.
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's so many things that need to be done from before the day leading up to sitting down to record, sitting down and recording and putting it together. Because it's always something, that's a tough part for me, because some days, you know, you just want to read the words off the screen, kind of phone in the show, and, you know, oh, I got bills and stuff to worry about, I got this, that, whatever. But you know what, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel fair, because we have so many people who, over the last 4 years, I mean, some people have literally been watching this stuff and talking with us and emailing back and forth with us for like 2, 3, and some people 4 years. And it wouldn't be fair. And even if it's...
We would rather not put out a show.
Than to dump some garbage out. And, you know, originally we had planned to do a couple of more episodes, but I lost my audio. We managed to get one recording done. And then, you know, by the time it got mastered and uploaded, but, you know, I'll be home in a couple of weeks.
And he's got a damn good vacation. I had 2 fucking weeks. They're gone now.
Yeah, 37 days.
Yeah, on my vacation, I worked on this project.
Yes.
That I can't mention yet.
That's right.
But, yeah, so like this year, and you just moved, I just moved. It's been a real clusterfuck, really. But, you know, like Ryan said, when we first started the show, what a show consisted of was like nothing compared to now.
Yeah.
Like now, there's like every show is like at least 4 to 5 hours of just piddly shit that has to happen. And then there's the unknowns that take like 5, 6, 7 hours sometimes.
I thought you were going to Donald Rumsfeld that.
There's things we know, things we don't know, there's things we know we don't know.
There's known unknowns, unknown knowns.
I fucking died the first time I heard that. Because it was in the compilation. Yeah. And I was just like, what the fuck, right? But, so we have had things happen to us as a result of the show. There's certain things that really blows my mind that I can't even say.
I think the biggest one that seemed to have reached across the miles was the Divic box.
Oh.
I think that one, because even that, it seemed like it reached out across the miles a little bit.
That one brought in a lot of, and you know what, the Bell Island one too, I've had a lot of people who were like scholars. See, he was angry that day, my friends.
Old man, friends.
Sent back soup and a deli. So if we're looking like we just moved, I now have a fresh drink, whereas before I had none, or I was almost out. It's because Ryan smokes, and I won't let him smoke in my house.
Yeah,
but,
so I gotta go outside and smoke like an animal.
I have to go out like an animal. And in fact, we do get some comments sometimes with little sounds they hear in the background of our show. And
Oh,
You know,
the clicks of
the
lighters.
clicks and the scrapes and the this and teapots.
Yeah, it's literally a table of glasses of water and vodka and coffee and
cigarettes,
ashtrays. You know.
And sometimes he cooks meth right there on the show. So yeah, so if everything just moved around a little bit, that's what it is. I'm trying to facilitate his habit, but not in my house. So we have had a number of things happen to us with the show. Actually, around the time, before we get to yours, one thing that happened, oddly enough, things that have happened have actually happened to my wife. She's more she's more in tune than me, which kind of burns my ass because like I'm a fan of this stuff, right? And my wife is like, you know, it's not that she don't like it, she do, but she's not as interested. But one thing, like she works at the hospital, and at this point in time, you know, she's got a much better job now. But at this point in time, she had worked. She was like a ward clerk, or she worked in a merge or something like that, and they had these security cameras around, right? And anyway, someone came and like she registered them, and she saw, and she swears by this. I mean, you know, she's more honest than me. She don't do the jokey stuff, right? And she was like certain that she saw a shadow person go across each monitor. Right? I don't know if I even told you that.
I don't think you did.
Right? But there's a number of things like that, and there was like this wasn't even that long ago actually when she was, she has a lot of things come out in dreams, right? And we had done an episode, I think, on possession. She don't listen to my show, for the record. You know, like...
No, nor do my wife.
Yeah, they're like, you know, tune us out, fucking let us just blather on. But she said that she had this dream that it was like someone trying to make a deal with her, but she knew it was the devil. And she had this real fear that it was like trickery to try and possess her or something like that. And like she woke up, I mean, she was actually shaken by this for a couple of days. I mean, you know, dreams don't generally, you know, you wake up, even if you had a nightmare, the next day, you know, into the day, you don't give a shit. You forgot it.
Yeah.
That's how dreams work, right? She was very fearful of this. Like, it felt different. Like there's something more to it. And there's been a number of things like that have happened. I know for you, Ryan, when we did the Shin episode, tell us about that.
Well, with the gin episode, well, I guess the place I used to live, I just moved out of, there's always been quite a bit of activity in that place. Always seeing stuff out of the corner of your eye, hearing weird sounds. And I think around the time we recorded that episode, probably the most significant thing, and it was one of the strangest, we were getting ready, my father was coming up for a visit, and we were kind of getting ready for that, and it was a couple of days before he was going to be there. I remember I was sitting on my chair, and my computer chair faces this way. My wife was sitting behind me at the table doing some paperwork, and I had one cat lying across the back of the couch here, and the other cat was lying on the cushion next to me. And suddenly this black orb just kind of lazily floats into the room, and I see it out of the corner of my eye, and I turn my head like this to look at it, and I'm looking full on at this orb, and it kind of picks up a bit of speed, and it wobbles a little bit like this, and just whoop, right over the table and through the wall. But the thing that gave me the chills was that as I was watching it, both of my cats looked up and were tracking it along with me. And as it started to move across the table, I was turning like this, watching it, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see my wife tilt her head back and watch it go, and then whoop, right through the wall. And
She said she saw like a face
No, well, that's the next one.
Okay.
So, you know, and she turns and, you know, looked at me like, and I said, yeah, I saw that, did you? And she said the black orb. So we definitely seen, and along with our cats as well. And then, I guess it was probably about a week later, now my father was here visiting, and the cats were being strange again. There was always this one corner of the house that they were always really preoccupied with. It was right up in the corner, you know, where the walls and the ceiling meet, right in the corner of the room. And, you know, the cats were kind of preoccupied looking up at it over and over throughout the day. And I can't remember exactly what my dad said. We were all sitting there watching TV, I think. And, you know, I noticed this disturbance up on the wall. I looked up and I seen like this, you know, this weird kind of pulsating shape, which is kind of similar to how, because I looked up and I didn't say anything. The two cats were like going ape shit because they were trying to get up on there's a little shelf, like a little mantle up there, and my wife had all kinds of fairy figurines on top of it, and it, you know, there's no real room on it, but the one cat was up there like, you know, almost impaling itself on figurines, trying to worm around and get closer to this corner. And later on that night, after my dad had gone to bed and we were in our room, you know, I asked her about it. She said that for her, she had seen like a face pressed against like a membrane
Against the wall.
and almost stretched out and then kind of sink back in. And, you know, it wasn't until the next day when I just kind of made a comment. I said, oh, look, the cats were, because we just started calling it the portal. Because there was always stuff flying.
You bought a house and there was a portal in the basement.
Yeah.
Like Oblivion.
Portal here on this wall and on the opposite wall, but at the other end of the room. Was like that was the exit. Because we would always see stuff coming in over on this end of the room, and then back on this end of the room, we would see things flying out.
Your wife, of course, she could always, she's like,
Got a
but
touch
even
of the
more
sight,
so.
yeah.
Because I remember, if you remember the house I lived in when we first met,
Mm-hmm.
there was something about that house. That house
Oh,
always had, I mean, a lot of our experiences kind of happened around
In and
that
around that
time
place,
in
yeah.
that place. But I remember every time that you and your now wife would come over, she'd always see like orbs, black orbs, and they're always, of course, flying into my head, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm the most paranoid fucking person in the world. Like, what do you mean an orb flew into my head, right? Like, of course, I could never see these things, but.
And that was a big thing for him then, because I remember watching a show on spontaneous human combustion.
Oh,
and
fuck! I still hate that.
And,
That is the scariest shit.
and at the end of the show, he was sitting there. Oh, is it warm in here? Do you find it a little warm in here?
Oh,
and I
God.
looked at him, I said, seriously? You fucking hypochondriac, you are not going to spontaneous. And he ran into the shower and turned on a cold shower. Oh, it's so warm in here. It wasn't.
But you know, I've had weird things. Now
I've spontaneously human combusted.
I've got
4
combusted
times.
4 times. But in all truthfulness, okay, anybody who's seen the movie Jacob's Ladder, do you remember when Jacob was at like this party, they're all dancing, and then he starts seeing like this woman is like she got a devil tail, and he's seeing like these little flicks of shit, and he gets really hot, and he gets this like super fucking temperature, and they have to throw him in a bathtub and throw ice, like he almost died, right?
Yeah.
When I was in fucking when I was away for college, and me and my now wife were living in this little apartment, and they had a Blockbuster still, so it was a while ago. But we went there and it had these previously viewed movies that you could buy, and you know they had the new Exorcist, and I don't think I'd seen that at that point. And I was like, fuck it, let's pick this up. And I mean, truthfully, we watched the movie, and I was pretty bored. It wasn't scary, you know, it was really slog, right? But for whatever reason, like halfway into the movie, I started getting super fucking hot, and it reminded me. I mean, I remember I had like I don't know if I had a temperature because I don't think we had a thermometer, but I was like I felt hot to the touch. I wasn't sick or anything, but my wife had to come in. I remember she had like a big punch bowl and it was full of water and ice, and she just fucking kept icing me down. Like I couldn't move. Like I was so fatigued. And it just overcame me and overwhelmed me like that. I was exhausted. I couldn't move, and I was just fucking burning up. And I don't know what that was, but it was freaky. And I know the movie was a slog, and but it was just the topic. The topic of the devil and possession, and the fact that this would happen at the same time. It got me wondering, and I'm not saying there is a connection, but it was just at the time, it really freaked me out and made me, wonder, right?
Yeah, well, of course, it had to be watching The Exorcist and
not fucking like
A Bug's Life or Finding Nemo or something.
Finding Nemo. It couldn't be something innocent and fun. I mean, of course, now that's also where I lived when me and my wife saw the UFO, right? And that still is one of the more bizarre things that I've seen. But do you know the one thing that I've seen that I still can't make any sense of? It's probably the strangest thing that I've seen in person, and I can't explain it.
The clitoris.
No, I figured that out. I figured out how those work.
Nature's Rubik's Cube.
No, actually, you know what? TV has made me think most guys are idiots.
Because I'm an idiot and I figured that shit out.
like.
Anyway, what was the weird thing that you had seen?
The weird thing that I have seen is the fact that remember I said the lights in the sky with right. So anyway, when I saw that and remember, I was there with like 4 or 5 other guys. We'd come from McDonald's, we were having a cigarette, right from where the bonfire used to be up. You know where I'm talking about.
Behind the mall.
Nobody else knows, but we know. We're from here. But anyway, it started off as orange pulsing light, right? And it would shoot across the sky. And I saw it first, and I was like, guys, fuck, look at that fucking shit up there. And nobody believed me, because nobody else saw it. I was the one that was back on looking this way. And then everybody turned, and, lucky for me, everybody fucking saw it this time. And we were watching it, and like every now and then, bang, and it would just shoot across the sky again. And we didn't know what it was, and we could tell that the trajectory was slightly turning. Like, because there was a mountain. If you were looking at it, it was like, there was a mountain here in the background, and the light was shooting this way, but you could tell it was kind of turning, so it was going to start going over the mountain, like out of our view, right? So we had actually piled up in the car and driven out on the highway going around the mountain. I found this, it wasn't a parking lot, but you could pull off the highway, and it was like a viewing area.
It was a little lookout.
Little lookout, right. Yeah. And when we had started, it was evening time, but it wasn't like really dark or anything like that. And by the time, we watched this thing for hours, and we watched it. It started off as an orange light pulsing and going like this. By the end of it, it was a blue light, and it had like changed direction, and eventually it just faded. Like each pulse would be a little weaker, right, until there was nothing. I don't know what that was. I mean, I've watched a million fucking UFO documentaries, videos. I read so many books, talked to so many people who are experts on it. I don't know what that was. It wasn't a meteor shower or anything like that.
That's the hardest thing with the lights in the sky scenario, because there's so many different. In fact, like the most significant sighting I think I had ever had was incidentally when my wife and I first started dating, and I mean I was 15.
Don't get married. It's a trap.
15 when we met, right? And this was shortly after we met. We were at a campfire at my dad's cabin, and we went on down the beach. Just jumped on the 4-wheeler and went driving down the beach. And then once we were, a 20-minute walk from anybody else, we just stopped and got off and laid down in the sand and looked up at the night, summer night sky. And it was so, like, the sky was black, and you're out in the middle of nowhere. Like, once I turned the light off on the quad, it was just pitch black.
Yeah, it's different. Like just for anybody who's from the city, it's not like the city. Like where I am right now, a 15-20 minute drive, and we're away from the city, and it's pitch black. It's not like you could go out with a telescope. Like people talk about light pollution.
Yeah.
None of that. It's like when the lights are off, you can't see a fucking thing.
And he's saying city, but it's it's a town, so you don't get the same light pollution. But we were looking at these stars out over there's a lake out in front of us, and out behind that are these rolling green hills and forests, and behind that was this scattering of stars, just blinking out. It wasn't late at night or anything. It was just it had just gotten dark. And suddenly the stars started dropping down, and I was watching it, and like instantly I was not terrified, but instantly I was like, "There's something wrong. Stars don't fall out of the sky." We've been lying. We were lying here lying on that beach for like 15-20 minutes, just looking at this grouping of stars, and all of a sudden they started to drop, and I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of them drop one after the other, some together, and sometimes they change direction, or they would stop and go back up a little bit and drop down again. And I mean, I ended up kicking up such a fuss over it that the next day I got my dad to call the local airport to see if there was like training or any kind of display, and they said no unusual activity whatsoever. So that was my first most significant sighting, but it just illustrates, you got so very little to go off. You see this amazing thing that you're like, wow, look,
and
it's like, and you tell somebody, and it's like, well, I seen a light, and it was in the sky, and that's pretty much all you can. It's so amazing at the moment, and you're like, I need to share this with people.
You can't articulate it. It's kind of like. So many people see things in the sky, but then like stories like the ones that we just shared now are not really typical, right? Like they're not the kind of stories that you often hear. I'm not saying they don't exist. I would like to think that they do, but
out of the hundreds of thousands, millions.
Well, like how many people have seen stuff like this and we don't hear about it, right? So.
In fact, when I went back and started looking, I can't remember how many years ago it was now, but the government of Canada released a whole pile of their UFO files. Not only did they release them, but they made this huge internet database where you could go in and just search for whatever you wanted. And of course, I pulled up our little hometown here, Corner Brook, Newfoundland, and I was floored with police reports of a giant cigar-shaped object rising up out of the bay in Cox's Cove.
I remember you telling me about that.
There was like 15 witnesses. The RCMP was out there. These people seen lights in the water, and all of a sudden, this giant cigar-shaped object just rose up out of the water and hovered for a few seconds, and then.
And that's amazing in itself, because UFO sightings typically are in the sky. Mm-hmm. But there are reports. I mean, we've covered a couple stories of underwater UFOs, and it makes you want to categorize them differently. But I don't think they are
USOs. They call them, isn't it? Unidentified submerged objects.
Yeah, but like.
I would imagine if you could fly through space with crazy gravity technology, yeah.
But it makes you want to categorize them separately, but I don't necessarily think they are, right? Just their technology.
Probably a lot easier to operate, 50 meters under the surface of the water and do whatever you need to do there. I don't know, but I just...
All right, now I'm just gonna save it.
Oh, I didn't hit record.
Oh man, wouldn't that be a kicker?
Oh, jeez, none of it came out. Oh,
I'm constipated. Oh,
it hurts my heart so bad.
I You have a bad heart, not a sugar. I might though. I just don't know it.
I slipped in the shower and fell down so hard I got diabetes.
Is that what happened?
I did slip in the shower at my brother's the other day.
Really?
But I just would fucking kill myself. Holy Christ.
I'm gonna call this Will and Ryan in the flesh. Well, we got over an hour. It's like an hour and a half. Pretty good. We must have been going for an hour just then. I'm just gonna make sure, I have it. Oh, geez, it's still recording for. So when we would catch up, I would phone Ryan, Ryan would phone me, and we'd always end up on this topic of the paranormal or a conspiracy or something like that. So, that was just our conversation, right? It always went there. And I had happened to be doing a web development program, and I had to make a website for school, and I was like, well, I really enjoy the paranormal, I'll make a website on the paranormal. Never really thinking it was going to go anywhere. It was a school project, right? It was an interest of mine that it gave me an excuse to kind of poke and prod there. But then I thought, I had some stories, and I thought, well, this is as far as my family stories I can get. And I was hoping that I'd get, people submitting stories, and nobody knew who the fuck Effed Up Stories was, right? Like, how do you do that? So I really didn't think anything would happen. And when I approached Ryan, we were just talking on the phone one night, and I was like, this conversation we're having, this should be the show. It was like Seinfeld. It'd be about nothing. It should just be this thing that we do here. And, I knew right away Ryan didn't take it seriously, because when I asked him for his picture, if I could pop one on his iPhone, just him in a bandana, this terrible quality picture. And I was like, yeah, I can't use that. So I've been using Ryan's pictures. Tame haven't had a lot of episodes, and that there's a very good reason for that. I'm not ready to let the cat out of the bag yet. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is give you a couple things to tie you over in about a month. I'm hoping to, I can't wait to show you guys the reason why that is. So tonight, Will and Ryan in the flesh.
On camera for the first time.
On camera for the first time. And the sound quality is going to suck. I just moved. I don't have enough sound materials to do this room right.
Enough acoustic paneling.
I can't, and I don't have shotgun microphones. We picked up a couple of fucking, couple Workman lights, actually, just to give you some lighting for this video. I thought it was going to be like 40 bucks, $230 later. A little bit ticked off, but they're kind of good. That's actually only one light. We weren't going to do the 3-point thing, but whatever. And we're going to be doing a little bit of drinking on the episode. But yeah, so this is more or less some things we didn't get to touch on. We didn't do these episodes for a while now. Everybody's been asking, have we died? So let's go over some of the things that happened in the past little while that we didn't ever mention. We finally crossed the Hello everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Effed Up Stories.
Very special.
Very special. A lot of you don't know this, but Ryan and I, we've been friends for, over a decade, but apart, on opposite sides of Canada. So we were friends here, he moved away, and we kept in touch and kept this Effed Up Stories thing going, but we haven't been in the same room together in how long?
Over 4 years.
Over 4 years, and so it's not very often that we get to do this. So we don't even really have a game plan. We're going to sit back and we're going to do a special episode of Effed Up Stories as friends. Ryan's on vacation, he's visiting home. And we're going to, there's a couple things we didn't get to go over that has happened in the past little while. So one thing with Effed Up Stories this year, I mean, everybody's noticed it, everybody said, we had a 10,000 subscriber mark.
10,000 subscribers.
10,000 subscribers. Never thought in a
How
million.
awesome is that?
We never thought in a million years that this would happen. Let's, for everybody who don't know, because there's a lot of you, how did Effed Up Stories come to be? Well, I'll let you start it, and then I'll chime in when you're wrong.
There you go. It simply started out of our own conversations, just telephone calls, and we're talking, 2, 3, sometimes 4-hour telephone marathons about all the stuff that we talk about on the show. Whenever we record a show. I was going to say every week, but that would be a lie.
We want it to.
We want to, but schedules being what they are. So, I mean, in essence, that's really how Effed Up Stories started. And it was you who approached me, and you said, people would be interested in these conversations. We should record them and put it on YouTube. And I said, you're fucking ridiculous.
And I was lying. I didn't truly believe it, but in a nutshell, I mean, what it was that Ron had moved away. This was shortly, some years after. It wasn't that short, it was a couple years after.
Yeah.
But years ago, stuff I took when he visited home. More.
Like 11, 12
and
years
I've been recycling the same 2 pictures ever since. So this is your most updated look at Ryan right here. It doesn't look all that different. The bandana is new. But other than that, he doesn't seem to age. But he has this terrible painting where all his bad deeds just go into that. But anyway, so we never thought that anything would happen with this. And we did a couple episodes. We threw them on YouTube. Forgot about it. We left for what, 6 months?
Something like that.
Something like that. And then I just happened to check back one day. I was like, holy shit, man. Fucking Skinwalker Ranch. It was like thousands and thousands of views. We're like, what happened? And then, we responded to some comments, and then it just kind of blew up, and it has been snowballing ever since. Never did any advertising.
No.
Never really reached out to anyone. In fact, our first interviews, our first people we had on our show, we didn't even go after them. Guys, Mackie came to us, and he was like,
I think, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, I'm a fan of your show. I know I can get you guys Jason Haxton. We were like, okay. And then he came to us. I can get you Chris O'Brien. And again, we were